Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I will be your moderator. Details of today's session are on the screen. We will be hearing from Hans Whaley, Magda, Petra and Anna, who are all members of the Product Domain Steering Committee, and they will be talking about the role of product data in a digital built environment, product data templates and passports. This session is scheduled to last 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end. The session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to Hans Whaley, who will take us away, I'd like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of the session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box and I will prompt you to do so. For everyone else in the room, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. If we can keep background noise to a minimum, however, we would like you to take part and ask questions. So please raise your hand if you have any comments to make or questions. I'd also need to bring to your attention the information that will be on the screen in a moment. buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider but are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. With that, I'm going to hand to Hans Whaley.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today, this morning, on the topic of the digital product passport. We are in the product domain, and we will discuss about how products are going to be included in the future in the building information modeling method. So,
not clicking.
So we face different challenges. We heard it yesterday. We have the question of resources, sustainability, but also the housing crisis. We have not enough homes and living in apartments getting more expensive. So this is a big challenge, and we provide solutions here. So we have a responsibility as a construction sector to make it more efficient but also sustainable. And this was also addressed in the European Construction Product Regulation, that we need to provide more information about the environmental impact of products, and in order to process this data, we need also to deliver the data in a more digital way and machine-readable way. And how we're going to do that. So my name is Hans Whaley Schmid. I work for the Swiss Wood Federation, and our goal is to provide information about sustainability, to make calculations easier, and
There's some issue, technical issue. We have a test session and it's happened, so please deal with us.
no problem. Yeah, and in the product domain, we have representatives like Magdalena Piczkowski, which is from Knauf Insulation. So it's very important also to include the industry to make them understand how this process works, because they are now a new partner in the digital planning. And this is a very important information.
Yeah, I need to do this for it to work online.
And also we have software developed like PDTs, which is creating configurators of complex products like doors, windows, and so on. Also, this has to be addressed, how we make digital product passports for such products which includes many different materials, and how we can also use the principle of the digital product passport to search complex components. We have also Anna Mertler in the room from Schindler. Yes, here. Which has elevators, very complex products, have also to be addressed somehow. And after building the life cycle, we have also the reuse of materials. This could be also addressed in the system of the digital product passport. We could register products or materials we take out from a building, bring it to the marketplace, make it visible for the planners.
We are now about doing the study online. That's why I'm so happy to see you all, because I think we can get a lot of new insights through the digital strategy. So now we have no slides, which is really great as a first start. For example, we'll do the promotion maybe. Tomorrow we have also the session. I hope it will be much more better in terms of the technicality. Also at 9, and it will be about pilots. So we will show you also the way how we are managing the DPP today and how we do the exercise to connect the dots. Okay, so first one was really the presentation. What is DPP?
You want to see the other that you can share, right?
Yeah.
Can we share first and then make a presentation?
That's what we no. We have to put it into slide. Yeah, I'm trying to. It's not talking. You see, not talking.
He's also part of group, team, and he wanted to share with you some thoughts that we all always
It's a
share.
delay. It's
So
the
I think
problem.
what is important that DPP is something which is regulation, but this is really changing our manufacturing world. Because for today, and I'm manufacturer and for installation, we have a lot of the data that is connected to this for our processes, but it's not connected to BIM. And I think this is something which is required by construction for regulation, and we need to find a way how to do it. Can we go further?
Okay, I hope.
Hopefully. So I think this would be like a vital of our actions or the transport, that everybody needs to know this by heart. So please 5 minutes more on this side. So please make a photo and say, okay, man, let's see what we do. Okay, so let's improvise. So, how many manufacturers do you have here in the room? Question to you in the meantime. Are you working already in the company? What are the big challenge? What is your big challenge for company?
I think I'm not sure anymore.
Find some standard. Okay. Anybody else? So myself, 50,000 on my part. My observation, I got my observation is this is a little still new, like we was 20 years of the construction company, and talking also from one of them for reconstruction. I remember when we started, it was only functional, I think, and we started to speak and
Maybe let's restart the presentation.
it was very big transformation for them. So I see this the same in our work. So, good.
So we restart PowerPoint. So hopefully then
Okay,
will work. Sorry. Oh yeah, take the microphone.
So we wanted this session collaborating. So it is my purpose.
Okay, yes, I'm happy to write basically because I'm from Poland. I'm a proud member of buildingSMART Polska. Yes, we have some observations since we are a software company, actually supporting manufacturers in terms of BIM models. We have this observation that actually in Poland that
It's very to restart from this machine, or otherwise.
actually, no, I don't know about your country, but in Poland, basically all manufacturers are always, all businesses are waiting to end in the last moment when they actually have to implement some sort of, they have to adapt particular legislation. And that causes quite a few problems because, sometimes people are just doing everything on the last day, so it's not done properly. So I hope that this session and also work of Magda and the product domain, that she will support this transition to make sure that actually we are not making everything on the last time, on the last day. Because as you probably most of you know, that causes much more problems than actually we could have before if we could actually have some nice thing and stop having to actually put up the businesses to do it. And being, from our perspective, is brilliant, because we already have some sort of data. We already have, I don't know about these manufacturers in this room, however, in terms of BIM, if you have BIM models, actually, you have your BIM model down in place, you provide all data, you have the data down. You just need the processes.
But it's process like this.
Don't do it at the end of the day.
I can't, it was, yeah.
So what is the DPP? I think will be a presentation prepared by our colleague Espen, who is one of the experts in the standardization. Then why should the building and construction industry design be clear about PDTs, so probably the template and DPP? How much product domain and business start contribute to the development? And this is what we want to really get from this session, from today and tomorrow's session. And what should the domain deliver to ensure impactful standard-based solution? And this is something that will allow us to structure our strategy. And I think it's really important because we are just in place that all the transformation is ongoing. And I think all of us, depending where we are working and what we are doing, we have the same some kind of an issue to connect the dots. And this is something which is really difficult to do. So, what is the DPP? Presenting Espen Schultz. Espen Schultz, we cannot introduce today. He is working in the standardization and now working in the working group WELL about BOPC, so Declaration of Performance and Compliance. So this is really important topic for all of the manufacturers. Today we have BOP, the Declaration of Performance, which contain the characteristic of the product, and BOPC will be much more developed. And we talked this yesterday about essential characteristics that each of the manufacturers needs to add to the BOPC.
Yeah, I can.
This will be some of the maybe next one, please. So DPP content, thank you very much. Wow, we are on the way. So DPP content, so this is what I mentioned, BOPC, this is something we don't have yet. We are working on this, and I see this on the manufacturer's iteration. We are now discussing more
So they're not seeing it online.
No, because I can't.
Understand
Escape.
It won't toggle. There's a delay. Actually, it was toggling. Fine, so,
from this point of view, I think it's very important that we also liaise with the
but no, it's not.
association of the working professional sector. So for us, we know that we do that, we need a move, and now we are also
It's
working with
interesting
some
that
of the us, I think the manufacturers of the
size work.
we align in terms of the characteristics that we want to see in the BOPC. Then we have others. Then we have others part of the DPP.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And which is like a everything you saw this slide yesterday, but here is data additional standard. And I think this is something that we discussed last summit in Singapore. And it's something that is important between us also to understand how busy it is, or it's not very much. The NCT will participate. On this topic, we did a pilot that we will show tomorrow on the morning session. And also our challenges and our comments done, etc. So I think it will be important to understand. One of the very important things that we also agree is about this identify the note about this, and I think we have a very great session today with GS1 who position themselves as a provider of identify for product properties or product itself. And we have also all of this technical documentation requires under documentation required under law, data carriers, we talked about this yesterday, and also labor labor. So as I said, we discussed this yesterday also. There is a wall, so there was this name from the Commission DG. Yesterday we have the Oscar Meto, who's working on this. And we have buildingSMART, and we have also BSDB. So how we can connect the dots between this. How we can also see that BSDB is part of the different standards that are developed and we use as a reference. So we have also other regulations that will be impacting all of this work, which is eco-design and sustainable product regulation. And this is the part that I think consumer will also have a part of this, how our DPP will also contain everything that is connected to the sustainability. And this regulation is saying, as you see, that it must be a set of the data for the product from the sustainability point of view. Here we talk about water and CO2 emission, which is great because somehow we can build the really great buildings which are good for the security, good for the sustainability, but it also it's really impacting the manufacturing process because depending on which sector you are, you have less or more challenges to provide products with lower CO2 emission, for example. I think the insulation were quite good for mineral wood, but it's not the case for everyone. Yeah, so new construction product regulation, this is where it was started. The construction product regulation is developed under CPE, so Construction Product Bureau, which is the main association for all of the organization and different companies, manufacturing companies, and who is also in charge of giving the rights for the selling market, as we said yesterday, also that allow us to sell our product on the European market and be allow and sustain and support the manufacturers from Europe against the competitors from others region of the world, which are the specific. Yeah, I will not go for all of the regulation.
Not working?
So,
This is also going away from the presentation and then the pointers not working anymore.
We have all of this standards of the regulation, how to do this transformation from digital to transport, and how to connect also the dots between towards mining, construction, and the manufacturers. And the work is done on the horizontal and on the vertical level, and the what makes sense couple of months also part of the working group with a lot about alignment. And what is the problematic? I think that not so many people understand this challenge, and somehow it's very difficult to give the opinion. It will be really implemented for all of the sectors. So there is some kind of need also to understand what is inside, how we do this, not only from the technical point of view, but what will be the impact on the business, because this is a huge change. And we take a first time, but if we have regulation with a delegated act in place, then everybody needs to deliver. And for construction, it is a great way to somehow have something that allows to make the design construction places much more time and cost efficient. Because this is what we were discussed in the past, the aim was for this, to make this part of the program. I will not go maybe for all of the WPC of the work, but I think it's very important that to understand that this is ongoing, that in some of the groups, maybe we need to have a more expert than the listeners, because it's very, very much. When I see our design part, we are like 35%, and like the 5 is contributing also. it means also that it's a bit time consuming, but I think it's something, when you change something like this, we need to have the understanding of what we are doing also. And it must be all of the sectors represented. So this is my point. This is very what we are doing, and we must be much more representative for the sector that is, the work is not about. And we have also this alignment between all both regulation, between possession product regulation and the eco design sustainable product regulation. And yesterday we discussed this also, that maybe that I think we like connector for all of this.
Yeah, maybe.
And we said I think we said that from this 6 point common data environment. So there are some initiatives, one of this that I'm also part of, the manufacturing information hub. I think they present something here on the presentation. Initially also how to provide the data in another way. It also makes sense to tell you about this. And yes, so I think all of the questions on the standardization, the best would be respond is Esther, but would be happy to take the question from him and ask he will send the reply maybe. But just for me, it's everything what we are doing must be somehow connected to the business. It cannot be on the standardization work, it cannot be on the regulation. By the end, we do the buildings, by the end, we sell our products. So somehow must be connected to the business model of the companies. And I think this is what we also find in product domain, to do the files, to check if everything what is done in terms of standardization. It's really easy to implement, which is the case. And we're happy with what we do. And then I wish that we leave the floor to you as well.
Thank you very much, Magda. Yeah, how we gonna implement this? We have different views, and in the product domain we are able to discuss this from different aspects. Like you say, Desmond is the expert in standardization, but it shows also, standardization is following what we as buildingSMART developed over the years. So this is quite relevant. What we did here, this common understanding created the foundation for legislation, which is laying the path for a common structure and to make it really work. So the main thing here is that in order to create a digital product passport, we need data dictionaries as a common semantic or even ontology that we can teach our algorithms what we understand in standards. So the future will be that each standard will be translated in human readable language, but also in parallel in a machine readable data dictionary, which is not creating duplicates of something, which is really a proper data dictionary. And buildingSMART has such a data dictionary, but of course, we have different data dictionary. The future is decentralized and connected. That makes it maybe also even more robust. I think it's not better to have it all in one always. And to see how things are aggregated and connected until we reach the digital product passport, the different steps you have to take. You cannot start at the end. You have to go step by step to really have a solid framework. So here we are, once again, we try to show this with the standardization. There is where things are discussed with experts from the industry to really describe it, how products are measured, for example. Then we transfer this in a machine-readable dictionary with properties and units. The properties have authorized connections to measuring standards. The next step is then, after we laid out the full field of properties, to select the relevant properties in a template. So that's an empty formula sheet where we can fill in values. And then we fill in the values and it becomes a product data sheet. And after we give an identifier and a URI, a link, we can then even have this digital product passport where future will be that we not transfer PDFs or data into and import into the building model, but we put only a link. So the building model in the future will be like a browser. We have materials which have a link, and the algorithms will call the API and take the information needed in this moment and into the building model. So how to do it in practice? In the wood industry, we created this activity team bin already 6 years ago. And we said, okay, we have harmonized standards. We want to bring it into machine readable world. We created a dictionary for products in wood, which includes around 14 different classes, mostly different standards, which share common properties. And then we were able, after this is the next step, to template. So we can create templates which are then homogenic over all the European countries. So that was the idea, not that every country is doing the same. We do it together and then we can rely on the common data dictionary. And then it was also possible to apply this in the different countries. So then everybody was free. Sweden did what they need to do for their clients and their association, and we in Switzerland tried also to go this way. We have a digital, like a BIM library of components, but also products. You can see here, so we started actually with components because the architect is looking for components with different properties, and but at the end the component is consisting of different products. So we have then a link to the different white papers in the Swiss chapter of the product domain, a small group. Sometimes it's better to have a smaller group to create the first draft of ideas that is then the foundation for further discussions. So we started with general topic of linked construction product data for circular economy. It was the first one. Here you see actually what we saw presented so far. We have a regulation, international framework. We break it down to the European level until products. And our job is actually the blue part to prepare the data in a suitable form that you can use it easily in the project planning. So until today we discussed between architects and engineers a lot about this, but this part was always somehow missing, and the big work was to the input of data. Many people did the same thing. That was really not efficient and time consuming. That means the industry have to invest some time to do the digital product passport. But after you will be really more efficient for everybody. The second white paper was precisely about the digital product passport. Was last year, and things changed in between, but at least we tried to figure out also how the digital product passport could be managed. That could be in-house or, as we saw before, with platforms. And there will be some registry. You have to register this passport that when your company goes broke, that the information is there somewhere. Also, in order for circularity, because at the end of the life cycle, you want to know what product it was, so it should not be lost as information. Yeah, they are a bit complex, but it was a lot of text where this is described. Then, specifically for the wood industry, we created then also a white paper on how it works in the wood industry. We already planned everything in 3D for prefabrication, and so we want also give a guideline to the architects what are the steps to take in order to plan wood. Wood is a system construction where if you take into account the early planning stages, makes it a lot easier later on. And now, what I want to show you today is a draft, the white paper on how we want to include environment product declarations into the DPP. Took us also several meetings. Big overview here in the same concept as we saw before. We have the legislative and standard level. And if we look closer, again, this aggregation we saw before, it's the same as before. We have standards, data dictionaries, and templates. And here, what's important in my view is to split the product data template into two levels: the environmental properties, which is for all the construction products, actually the same template, and then the specific technical data of this product, which it will be. The next step, and maybe that's also very important, to have a generic level. So we could start even before all the industry is delivered in DPP. We could create generic set of product digital product passports. So we could already start work in early planning stages. You have anywhere to use generic information. We don't know specific yet. So that we can later talk about. This could be a possible next step to make it start the engine to rules. Also, generic data is important for small businesses. They cannot afford to create their proper DPP. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. You have also to find out where it really makes sense to make specific DPP and where you can actually use a generic with DPP. That's maybe something we have to discuss to not create too much disturbance in the market. We don't want to kill the market, we want to support the market. And then comes the specific level where we have off-the-shelf products. So you do the digital product once and you make hundreds of thousands of the same products immediately. But more and more we have made to order. Like I said before, the doors can vary in sizes. Each time a different product. And then we have also the materials which are not included in the construction product regulation. They don't meet officially per law digital product passport, but we need it as architect. We need also to include this information. So this is also something we have to think about. So the law is only in Europe is only covering this, but actually we need the whole thing to make it running. Generic if we maybe sometimes don't have any specific DPP. And then the important thing, as I said before, it's split. We have then the EPDs, environmental product declarations, which are stored separately with a URI, and they can then be connected to the digital product passport or the product data sheet first, because they can have one to many relations. So it's better to have it once at one place and then distribute it to all the possible products that can be applied. Then we fill it in the form of the DPP with an ID, as I said before. It has a registry. This can start to communicate, so we have then a link, a URI, which can be accessed with an API. It can have with connection to the asset administration shell, which already exists. It can be applied for the assessment of functional units, as we saw before, a wall or a door or different elements. We can optimize the elements and bring it together to the building, make a full system assessment, and can repeatedly do it. You can do different scenarios and optimize very quickly. So that's how the flow of the data at the moment we see how it should work. So now this leads to our open discussion, Marco. Maybe you come. What could we do now? So is it only the job of the industry, or could we support the industry somehow? What solution?
So maybe just manufacturing still not. So as a big manufacturer, we are working on our data and we have some modified concept to provide it whatever it will be in the future, right? But I see that this is not enough because it will be just to comply with the regulation. If we want to comply with totally with CPR regulation, we need to be also complying with the BIM. So to understand what is how to comply with BIM additional standard, I need to understand what is the data that we need of each of this process of the stage of the process. And this is not clear. So this is my point as I see today. Maybe there's a lot of others, but I think that this is one that this is like a real connector. If you want to provide the data on which stage, which data is needed. Just to start the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Webs, TNO in the Netherlands. You talked about the 87 standard, PDT standards. It's giving data model, giving syntax, that kind of stuff. But we also have PSD with another data model or a meta model, the JSON import schema or the APIs, other syntax, other semantics. That's already two. Anyway, we have the 12063, yet another data model, originating back from Stabu in the Netherlands for a long time. Yet another syntax, so we already have three ways of doing it. I saw two in your schema, so 1206 was already out. So I saw two. So my first question is, why do we need PDT and PSD? That's my first question. Then the next question is, we just did in Holland with many parties the review of the Sensenlet ETC 24 initial standards now. Again, new data carriers, new data models, new syntax, API structures, other ID systems. They use the IDs, they propose the IDs from the WPC. That's the fourth option. Then in the end, you mentioned link data. Well, I'm a bit from the SML, from the Sensenlet ETC for group. That's the fifth option. I can understand that manufacturers are waiting now. What's it going to be, right? One of the five or two of the five. How do you feel about this variety of standards that are really quite different in syntax, semantics, and identification?
To be honest, this is a question to ask.
Might be a tough question.
That's why
I want to ask it.
Thanks for the question. So I'll try to react. So From my perspective, BSD is really just a container for different sections that we have DPP. The template first, that means like a set of requirements. So what the EU is trying to do, in my opinion, is they want to compare products. If you want to compare products, you need to have a predefined list of properties. And this you can take and put it inside BSDB so it will be accessible to everyone. So everyone can see it there. Then you can fill it in, you have to do a custom and so on. And then if you have the data as a manufacturer, you can basically start on your own. You don't have to wait for the standard. You can just prepare Excel table and make machine readable data. And I think that the way would be mapping your properties to some kind of standard. It could be anything, and like box or like list of properties that is uploaded to BSDB. So you can map it to IFC properties, you can map it to your industry's properties, and so on. So it's all about, like, the first step is really to have something that is machine readable and digitize what you have in PDF as manufacturer. Then the second step is map it to whatever you want, and then you can generate the outputs basically. So BSD is not another like type of it's just a container that is the technology around.
I disagree.
Yeah, I mean the IFC properties, for example, they are not anywhere else, but in the end of the day, you can take your own list of properties and upload it and name it. You can create your own dictionary if you want.
Okay. So my point was that, of course, the BSD itself, it can have 800 dictionaries now at the moment. It's a service, right? That's clear. But the language controlling the input and the access of the information there, and people don't say it's a standard, it's not in the BSI standards list. But it is a standard way of doing it, right? And then people might ask, well, if I put my product data in the BSDB, or should I put it as a PDT template, or should I wait for the official standards from the PTC 24? People are a bit confused. What should I do if I take my properties and my components that have these properties, and I want to neutralize them in one standard, not in 10 ways, not in 10 standards?
That's a confusion, because you don't put your data into BSDB. You can use the list of properties that is there to create your content, but then you should provide it. It could be on your website if you have the technology that creates URL that will be there 50 years, so you can have a provider. But generating the DPPs, you can use what is in BSDB, but it's not for like it won't be the database that you is requiring. It will be just a template. It will be just a list sets of properties there that you can use.
So there were some other questions.
Thank you very much for a very interesting walkthrough. My name is Endo Tarandi from Sweden. I'm team leader in the program Smart Built Environment for information infrastructure. And we have some strategic projects, and one of them is a platform for the whole life cycle based on the ISO standard ELCS, where you have requirements, you have design objects in versions, and you link them with object-like relationships, and then you go to the individuals with their types that are products. In the design, there are generic products. So my question here is, why do you take time to consolidate all this needs? But one of the configurational components, for example, I'm talking about this circularity. We say that we keep everything that the description with the products, like a pump, for example. But then if we want to have a circularity, we need to change the parts or the pump and have that description. How does that work in this breakdown, because when you need a new, not real model, a product model, product information model. That was one question. And the other one is, we have this generic, where do we call the generic products level, like on refrigerators, and they are not energy consuming or something. Those are very different people that have in this generic product.
Yeah, and I think the generic level could be a proof of concept in leading also a bit the industry in which direction it could go. Could also create more security for the industry that what they're doing is showing result in the market. How many generic dictionaries will be? So yeah, the environmental impact of the product production is different in different countries. So it could be that we have maybe a collaboration between countries, but each country will have somehow one set of generic product information. Maybe we can share the physical properties like thermal transmittance and density. We could define that together, but I think the environmental impact is then nationally could be different because of hydropower and so this and the other question was the complex products. So this is the job of the standardization. So this is now arriving at the level of the different construction product standards. They have to be updated, and the experts will think about what's important for this product in order to make it circular, what's the information needed, and then it's relevant for this.
Maybe your question was also in the direction how you update the data during the life cycle, right? And I think this is also, you mentioned like the elevator, and this is of course also like a challenge we are facing, right? I think what we are trying is also with this and also our session tomorrow is to say, hey, let's start somewhere, or let's make some PDPs where we can show that it worked for the first stage. Also, maybe not the perfect regulation is there yet, or and that's experience in the prep, like in an operative project, because as I said, we want to serve the business, we don't want to serve the standardization, and the standardization should serve the process and all the goals which were pictured yesterday or during the conference. But and then I would say, we need to see how we can update it in the life cycle, how we tackle the different phases, but at least we need to stop something. And finally, maybe because we had already like 3 years ago started the discussion on the digital supply chain in the environment, and we have a lot of questions. So this takes a lot of time to do this, and also please respond to you also that we don't have an answer today. What we are trying to do is what we know, how we should somehow progress, and we see already that it is very difficult. So in this audience that people somehow are expert, it's okay. And then if you go to the business, it's not the same. You have always 3-5 persons or 40,000 people working in the company that they are really having this expertise. So we cannot just, in fact, there is one say using a gas. So you do something, this is like a big factory, and you cannot really do anything with this. So for me, I don't know, it should be somehow very pragmatic also in terms of the implementation. The DPP and production to be is in 3 years. And for the installation material is 2020, it was I think 8, now it's 2029. So it's massive, you want to digitalize, massive somehow very pragmatic approach, and a lot of pilots to say what is good, what is not, because by the end it's business will choose. Of course we have regulation, but the business will choose. And depending on the the size of the business, this will be different.
Hello, my name is Jan-Anders Jansson from Sweden, and I'm also also a member of the steering committee in the building domain. And I think when I listen to this, it's more or less always on the producer's perspective. And we need to set up some projects, how to consume this data, what to, how to, and so on. And maybe that should be a joint project between the product and building domain.
And we really expected to get this proposal during the session, so I think you might have a day. Thank you for this. Because this is what we said, if we don't piloting something, we cannot really find the answer. There was another question.
Hello, Eric from Canada. So non-European, I guess for non-European chapters, we're a bit behind the whole DPP, and there's a lot of stuff happening in Europe, and it's great from a sort of what are projects that can happen. How do we account for the standardization that's happening on multiple fronts that I see, or even from the ISO? There's also a lot of work happening at the ISO level. There was a report that was just published by an ad hoc working group in TC59 and C13, trying to grapple with all the standardization efforts that are happening within ISO. So there seems to be multiple works happening on multiple fronts, especially led by the Europeans, which is good, but how do we account for other regions? I think that's one of the buildingSMART's remit that has to work everywhere, not just in Europe. And how do we bring other chapters along that are perhaps less mature or haven't thought about this as much? And I think +1 for the how do you go from generic to that? That'll be a big part. It's going from generic products because it has to go with the life cycle of the project. So we were struggling with the same things. We were just starting to talk about product passports in Canada, and people are asking, what is this? And how do I start? Where do I go? So.
Yeah. The question is that now only a European question or an international question? And then the fact that the European Union took over the ideas of buildingSMART is actually showing that maybe it's now trying to do it, and then others can do the same. We have first ISO standard, which for EPD, the 22057, which is showing the international structure of environmental product data. So we have already a big set of data harmonized internationally, whether it is a DPP in Europe or a similar concept somewhere else. So I think we don't do it to serve the law. We do it really to improve our industry, and that's why I don't think only European when we talk about that. I think it's now a use case, so to say.
I think what we are looking for is indeed to have these use cases that somehow to trying to do this, and we are open for any some kind of discussion and research to progress. Because this part of work in the product domain is we are quite they're less advanced, but we want to speed up because we're not information learning. So. And I would say we had also the similar questions or in the social where we could send that and want to connect with all of you. I don't know the rest.
My question is similar to the one that I asked us in Singapore. Do we know if we how to put the information about products in IUC files?
This is what we will show you tomorrow what we plan to do.
And also the partnership with the building domain and the perspective domain and the construction domain.
So in fact, tomorrow, it's the result of the discussion that we have been seeing after that we just went in the party and we said, let's try to do this. Okay, so we thought about this, let's try to do this. So we have divided them into materials of the pipes, on the insulation, on the wood. Just that we did this like technically. then we will see more. Right? So we progress. I think it was quite good progress since the last summit, and we will try to do more.
This is on, yes. I just have a challenge from Eric down here. I wrote here. I'm chair of CNTC 442 for BIM standardization in Europe, and also ISO TC 59 SC13, that is the BIM standardization worldwide in ISO. Just to inform a little bit, I think there is been enough information here about what's happening in CEN. So the standardization about the legislation and how to do this the standard for this is done by CEN and CENLEC. There is a horizontal group called JTC24 that makes the framework that for all industries. And 442 take the standards for the construction industry. But on ISO level, there has also been a comment from the plenary meeting last year in SC13 that also ISO need to be connected to this. This is of interest for China, from South America, from Canada, everywhere. That some even UN have documents on digital public passport. And it's now important that, first of all, we try to understand what actually is a digital public passport, that we have the same understanding of what it is and what it can be used for. And this SC13 last year sit down on how the group that should prepare a report for the plenary. This will be in Sao Paulo in next month. How to SC13 can continue supporting digital public passport on international level. At the same time, that is quite interesting because it can be quite disturbing that there's a lot of initiative, not only buildingSMART, but there's a lot of ISO and IC committees that have started the digital public passport. So what is happening now is that as a proposal from you, I think is now out for voting in both IC electric committee and ISO, that there will be an ISO IC joint TC on digital public passport. So there will be, and then it will be much easier because then on CEN level, European, you have one contact point on the higher level, not many as today. So I think it's important for buildingSMART to have an overview of what's happening here. Because you cannot compete with this, but you can support this. Support how it's connected to the model. For example, we're not discussing any geometric. IFC is not a part of the discussion about digital public passport. It's properties, you know. So you need to see how this can be connected, useful for the industry in the whole process. But you need to have a good overview also, and that is not a easy task to come in.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a it's a lot of talk of the digital passport, but that's the legal part, the legal view of properties. To need life cycle operation, then we need a lot of properties that handles in the data templates. So for me, the digital data template, the digital passport, is only a kick in the ass to start to use. But we need the whole view of it and see this over the whole life cycle.
But this is what I think from manufacturing is the same need. So it's like how to bring this together, because we have this part in the DPP, which is a central characteristic and additional characteristic, and this is for the life cycle, right? And I think all of the manufacturers are confronted with that. But the issue is how to get some kind of the recommendation to make it easy, because if not, you cannot imagine that people are starting to work everybody about the data to provide DPP. So it must be really some kind of clarification from both sides, what is expected, when, maybe like use cases, whatever, but something that is, understandable for the people who are not especially also.
Yeah, and the need of properties will be an ever ongoing work. Yes. It will never be finished.
Yes. Yes. Okay, but we need to somehow do it.
Yeah, but we need a structure to handle it.
Exactly.
Okay, now for the question. No, actually, there was a quite detailed and concrete question on the slide. I mean, it was the purpose of this domain, and I fully agree with what my colleague said before. So I think, honestly, it's a great idea to partner up with the building domain to have a practical use case, something our customers can use. They can see that it's working, because I think sometimes we are talking theoretically about theoretical things, but I think we need a practical example. This is the one work stream. So giving a hands-on example, and maybe using concrete software, saying you click here and then this happens, and this is how it could look in the daily desk, in the daily software. Partner up with some software companies here. Why not? But the second thing is, I'm coming from a big manufacturer, and I'm fully agree with my colleague from the Netherlands here. I would say, as a manufacturer, I would say there's nothing in it for me. I can wait now until some consulting company comes to me and say, now let's go. So there is at the moment, I see what? My company has no clue what's going on. We are talking with SAP, we are talking with PIM system, we have no idea what's happening on the construction side. So I think we could probably think about how a real company benefits or can participate in this process. How do we bring our data in this process? Because we don't set up any BSDD connector, because BSD what? We don't know it. We are producing goods, we are shipping them somewhere, and the other part of the story is the building industry. So I think we should focus more on what's in it for the manufacturer. How do we get the data out of our ERP systems into this process? What is the current status of the standards? Which products are affected by the standards? So there is, at the moment, I'm missing a bit this concrete information. And even if the information is, there is nothing concrete, but I know. Or for example, you are also involved in this manufacturer information hub. Why not share this? Look, industry, this is going on in other parts of the industry. So I think sharing information and making it clear and transparent before consulting companies do this could be one second use case work stream of this domain.
To be honest, that's why I brought this for my DPP, the discussion of the start. I think 2 years ago we met in Prague and discussed this, and it was not really on that agenda. And I said, it's something we practically ask on factor. I totally agree with you on factors. Doesn't see, however, because my company is example, so I have the people who are working on this, how to do this. Those are people implemented somehow. Services for our customers from the manufacturers. So it's not the case for every single manufacturer, and depending also about what performance is being got. So it's a valid tool, and that's why we speak about this, and that's why we provide the pilots, because we want to progress and see how we define our implementation, but we do have also this element. And the second point, manufacturing information hub, as I also quite informed about this is still the concept. So there is some kind of support from this initiative, but it's really about how manufacturers should work together to provide the data and for what. For the moment, we have studies, so we have some kind of understanding of what we want to do. That is a concept, and now it's more about the kind of requirements we want to implement the pattern. And there's a session, so there's a session somewhere during the program. Perfect advertisement for a session tomorrow. And I think also is the question like, or you don't have the data, or manufacturers not providing. Here you have some manufacturers who want to provide data, so collaborate with us. And there was some work.
Yeah, thank you.
Robin Dogmar, National University in Australia, and after this, what is I think there are a couple of issues I want to bring up. One is a technical issue. What we're trying to do is use deliver packages due to 10:30. So on the technical side, there are lots of other areas that need to do the same thing. So I'm not sure whether you have to post the aid or people on that, but will be something you need to consider. We did an implementation
implementation of product libraries, working with NatSpec in Australia around building specifications, and we did a proof of concept software that allowed the designers to start off with a generic product and work their way through. And I'm not 100% sure what you were trying to achieve. If you've got your product certifications, you do your design to the button, you get those through product certifications. I think you also need to understand how the designers and the contractors who actually work with information, what information they need right at the start, very generic information, and how that then flows through the more detailed information that manufacturers provide. And if you look at the various product library implementations around the world, I think most of them fail because the products in them are very detailed. There's no bridge from sketch design through to the installation on site. So I would recommend that, suggest that the role of buildingSMART as a generic organisation would be to fill in the gaps in the decision making with these software tools, so that eventually the detailed information that again hopefully going to manufacture sort of products makes sense within the concept of the decision making. And you've got the process of going from generic information working towards target possibly for the sustainability of the average parameters.
Exactly, and this is we also did some somehow experimentation, so we provided assembly with a generic and non-generic specific, but still we don't have the strong purity of the data. We don't have people have the rating for the assembly wall of it, and then we don't know, people will not able to get more information. So there is some kind of a process, not described how to do this also, but I think it's a very important. That's correct.
Yeah, my question was kind of the same or remark that especially the generic DPPs are very important for us as a for architectural modeling. And I'm really glad to see it in the presentation that you're really addressing that. And yeah, this I know, of course, if you look at installations I produced, I don't prescribe now. I prescribe some sort of installation that would have some RC value. And then somebody else would say, after the building permit is done, the contractor will say, okay, I need to do this, and then I can choose now or somebody else. But if I set the values, then they have to comply with the values. So I think that's very important to have this generic EPD still.
Yeah, it's more and more clear, right? This generic value is important as a connector over the planning stages, and maybe you have to describe a project. We need funding. We do it in our besides our job, right? And but I think it will be possible somehow. But yeah, it's really also a call to the industry. Yeah, please support us. We give now somehow work in advance, but we need also the support later on.
And I think as well you got the point, because this is what we are showing you. It's not like an official project of the next lab. It was our initiative based on the discussion that we had in Singapore, and I said, let's try. And for the moment, it was agreed with our coordinator, with our initiative, our president of our domains. We will do this like like just under radar, right? So because we see we cannot stay for away for a long time, so let's do this. So if this is something ability from people who want to be part of this kind of survey of the activity, then we have a real buildingSMART project that we combine all of these things and design together. What is it?
Not only the generic part, we need the requirement part as well, so that we can go from the generic, from the from the requirements to the generic part and over to the solution.
And everything.
Yeah.
like for elevators, we did also in Germany in the BDI 11 or like 11.5, or it's like the 2552 11.5. There's also this graph for elevators from this generic to more specific. Like you have this kind of 3 stages, or the former it was called LOD, now it's called LOIN. This is also like with the data structure. You can also map it to a DPP, or like I think there are different ways, or we need to see how this generic to specific approach looks like, or and maybe there was also the question like what should manufacturer do, and what I try to do in my company to say, hey, let's have this data ready, right? And so that we can either when we go that we are kind of we have like the base, or then we can map, we can have a different structure, and I think there also software vendors will help us, or but the data, this is our job, and this we need to clean up.
Yeah. You actually touched my question already, because we talk a lot about generic and specific, and I see at least 3 interpretations of that one. We ourselves use that generic in a parametric way. You start instantiating these parameters to fit things, and you get a determined product, right? You make it specific, what we think. That's one interpretation. The other one is often in product world, people say generic product is vendor independent. Vendor independent will have a generic structure, and then you make it vendor dependent. But that's different from making it specific in the instantiation way, because you can still have a parametric product from a vendor, right? It's in a different dimension. And then there is an interpretation, I think Robin said, and you said it also, you go from global to detail. You add more details, on a level of detail. But there are already, you could say, 3 interpretations of going from generic to specific. And then going to an individual thing that might be an IFC, that things you can point at, that specific fixed thing. And even beyond that, going to occurrence where you can follow that individual over its lifetime for circularity. But it would be very good to try to really formalize somehow the generic, specific, individual, that dimension. You have same understanding.
I think there's really 3 different levels in the 3 pieces.
I'll be a bit more pragmatic this time. With the quick question. So I think you need a use case management for DPP. I mean, I think BIM and DPP are the same thing, where they mean a lot to everybody. So I could see using a use case management tool for the digital product passports. And I'm saying this because for us right now, environmental concerns are not that important. For us, it's tariffs, counter tariffs, and traceability. So the use case is now not, end of life and all that. It's where is the product coming from, and how many times is it going across the border, and where are the materials coming from. So that's another use case, because we're imposing tariffs and counter tariffs and all this silliness. So I think if we can start looking at different perspectives on DPPs and being clear about those and where the value proposition is, for instance, for us, it's the Ministry of Economy that's going to invest in this, because they also want to have access to the European markets for our manufacturers. So there's another, use case that has nothing to do with circular economy, with carbon and stuff like that. So.
That was in the product.
Thank you. Christian Herrera from CEMEX. I'm in charge of development of digital tools in our company. It's a concrete company. And one of the things that we have seen is the dynamic that will change the data. For example, we are in a decarbonization process around all lands in the world that could be that our data from one day to the other change. So how to we are thinking in a way of how to pull this data, the latest one, and to provide the realistic data to the client. But we also think in how to validate this data that the client also will be based that this is the real data that we are providing, and not just a value that we think that will be but to ensure that it is the truth.
Yes, I get your point. This what is very uniform products placed aboard. They can be distributed and they can once come from this country and the other day from the other country, but for the entry it's the same product, right? And you have this, it's like you have actually the products, the articles have to maybe be split because they are equal in in physical performance, but they are different because they have different origins and different environmental impact. So it's a different product article at the end. So that means for manufacturers they create more and more articles at the end, even if they are the same.
But can I ask a question? Like, if, for example, you have a specific market, this is like really matching the reality, how you could this?
Yeah, for example, we will have, I would say, the same product, but that is produced in many different plants. So in one plant, we could have, for example, 100% solar energy, but in the other, we still have diesel. But maybe in the one that we have diesel, we have also solar plants that some days produce some energy, but other no. We could have this data, of course, we could have it centralized, but how could we validate this data for the client?
Yes, it's the same for wood, right? Where it's wood from. There are then laws which make you get controls, and if you break it, you have to pay in fine. I think it's not possible otherwise. You would then only sell green cement with solar power. But it could be an advantage for Cemex to sell it in your company internally. Say you need to diversify the product according to the environmental impact, and you sell the green cement to countries who look for that, and to the rest to Canada, which is not caring about it.
Just to say, we have 5 minutes to go.
5 minutes.
Is this answering?
Yes.
You asked a question and I saw your hand.
Domenico Russo from GF Building Pro Solution. I'm being customer success manager, so from my question, you will understand that I'm not super strong in the manufacturer perspective, but also from the interaction that I have on the daily basis with the planner, contractors. So what I can say is that, as Marta was saying about the manufacturer, giving data is not a problem because as a part of big manufacturer company, we are dealing with data production in many ways, in many senses, and it's not about producing the data. But where is the difficulty is also to understand which of these data is really needed and when it's needed. Because when I speak with any designer in my work, I understand that there is no plan behind that. So you understand that the designer is producing because he has his own deliveries. So you will look for data about calculation. So we offer, calculation, engineering services, and so on and so on. But on the long shot, on the long perspective, we have so much data that sometimes we have to cut information in the model. We cut the information. They ask back to put it like Etim, Uniclass, Omniclass, a lot of it. So it's also to recall, which is the standardization on BIM that was mentioned before by the other attendee from the technical committee for you about the ISO 19650. So it's also there maybe where we should find a solution about when the information is requested. We need to have also, generally a framework. This information is requested in this case. This information is requested in this case, and maybe we can then answer a specific question of the market. And obviously, in the private will be more difficult because the private generally was just to comply with regulation. So you need to give the document, so they ask you the document. But maybe on the public project, we can structure this, we can sit at the table and take maybe a bit longer time to address at each phase what is needed. And also with the DPP now, I understand from small I know that DPP is about not only, let's say, based for the current decision, project decision, but also on the long shot, because you want to know in 40 years which projects you have used. But you need also a building owner, someone that is commissioning the building, to be aware that you will be needing this information in 40 years, because you make something that is supposed to be useful for something. So,
exactly, and I think this is our understanding from different discussion that we have. And maybe because, as you said, 40 years, so for example, when we come back to what should contain DPP, so let's, for example, the characteristic durability, and then we need to think durability, what it means for each of the product, and then the test that we are using for testing the durability. So this is giving also to others. But thank you very much for all the comments. I don't know if you can still one or we can maybe short.
Yeah, it's short. I'd say that the most important of the job you have done is to establish a structure that how we can see properties, definition of properties, relations between properties, and collection of properties, the data template. And by that we can manage to have a unique infrastructure for handling the data over the lifetime. And that exists not for nothing today. So this is the most important way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good work.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we will, I think we have a recording of this session, so we'll take all of this point and come back to those who would like to somehow discuss with us, because our objective of the session was really to have some kind of the visibility, what could be the strategy of the product domain. And so we'll do this collaboratively. I think all of the comments are super important.
Again, like call for collaboration, like also we try to reach out to you. If we miss somebody, reach out to us, please. Also, we have a second session tomorrow. Join us. There we will see a specific hands-on example, so away from all the theory. So thank you for your contribution and see you around.